So picture this, it's 1967, I'm fat, dumb, and happy. Well, not fat, but I'm dumb and happy. I'm working full-time in pharmaceutical. I'm going to college at night. I got a 2S deferment. And all of a sudden, Johnson's got to make this war effort a little stronger. So as a part-time student, I lose my deferment. Within 6 weeks, I got a letter, go for your physical. 6 weeks after that, I got my draft notice. But I knew it was coming. So by then with my draft notice in my pocket, I've already been talking to my recruiter. I went down to the recruiter's office. He looked at my draft notice, tore it up and says, "You're in the Air Force." I said, "Oh, wonderful." And off I went. That was May of 1968. I was interested in airplanes. That's why I didn't wind up in the Navy, though that would have been okay. I knew I was an enlisted man, and I didn't think I'd have any hopes of flying. You know, flying would be really special in my life, but I figured, that's never going to happen. So after basic training in Texas, and I went to tech school to learn how to become a weapons mechanic. And that was basically loading everything you can load on an F-4 Phantom jet. Bombs, rockets, missiles, nuclear, and conventional. That was in Lowry Air Force Base, which is closed. That was in Denver, Colorado. Then I got a full-time assignment in Florida, working on the F-4 Phantom. And I'd be looking at these airplanes that are coming into the Weapons Development Center. We had every unimaginable plane in the Air Force inventory come to Eglin Air Force Base in the development program, including the SR-71, which in 1968 I saw flying around. Anyway, my eyes beheld this thing. It's a C-119 flying boxcar. Normally you would see it at guard bases like New Jersey had them. They were all over the country. I have to put a little red dot over here. Normally they got, everything's closed up, right? This is a cargo airplane. This is the parachute doors where if you wanted to jump troops out on parachutes, it had a clamshell in the back. You could open it up to put cargo in and out. This was the crew entrance door. And this is what I would expect to be seeing as a C-119. Well, all of a sudden down at Eglin, I see this thing. I go what the heck? It's black. It's flying around with all the doors open. The back door's open. The front door on the other side's open. Plus, it's got these guns and things sticking out the left side. I'm going man, this is peculiar. You know, that's pretty cool. The AC-119G, the Shadow that I flew on, was a successor to the AC-47 Spooky gunship, which had it was called Puff the Magic Dragon. And we were stuck between that and the newest gunship, which is still around today, is the AC-130s. So what did they do to this poor airplane? Well, when I first got aboard, it should be completely empty as a cargo airplane. Well, this thing was packed. I mean, it had a night observation scope in the front. It had 4 .30 caliber Gatling guns in the side. I'll talk about some details of these in a bit. It had a huge illuminator, a big spotlight that would work in either visible or infrared out the back. So the night observation scope and a huge lamp that works in infrared. Looks like it's dark out there, we could see everything. It had a flare launcher out this side, a rack for the ammos, a control panel, and we had a little jet engine and a generator burning aviation gasoline to make enough power to run the light, okay? It was a huge lamp. You just doesn't plug it in anywhere in the airplane. It had its own generator. So there was a crew of 8, the flight deck up here, and us gunners and the others in the back. So I'm at Eglin. I see this airplane flying around. It's cool. All of a sudden, in a weapons shop, a note goes up on the board. It's called Palace Gun. I go, well, let's read this. Let's see. The Air Force wants weapons mechanics to go fly on gunships. Let me think about it. Yep, I was in. I volunteered. Everybody goes, "You're nuts, Triska, what are you doing?" I got accepted into the program, said goodbye to everybody. That was the end of 1969. And in January of 70, I started this, 6 months. First, you got to go through Geneva Convention training, prisoner of war, and general survival school. That was 2 weeks up in Fairchild Air Force Base in Spokane. Most of those 2 weeks were up by the Canadian border in some mountainous facility that I never hoped to go back to. You had to go through physiological training, including parachute training. And I went back to Eglin Air Force Base for that. Physiological training is a real complicated word, but you can imagine things like getting stuck in a steel tube and they suck all the air out of it, and they see how you react to hypoxia so that you can learn what it's like to have no air in your system. The other thing is getting ejected at 10 feet in the air, getting ejected over a swimming pool, fully clothed in your combat gear, fall into a pool of water and try to swim out. Okay, when you think you got it, they drop a parachute on top of you. Now you got to swim out from underneath the parachute. There were 2 guys ready to pull the people that couldn't do that out, but I crawled out and swam to the side, out of breath, thanking God I survived that. So now that you get all that done, you have to learn how to go fly an airplane. You have to earn your wings, as I said. This is going to be an opportunity. I looked at those stripes on my sleeve, and I said, wow, I'm going to have stripes and wings. You know, be an enlisted flyboy in the Air Force. I love it. So I went to Columbus, Ohio for most of February and March in Lockbourne Air Force Base to learn how to fly that AC-119 as a gunner in the back. After home on leave, I went to Jungle Survival School in Clark Air Force Base in the Philippines. Okay, that was June of 1970. It had a nickname. It was called Snake School. So I spent 10 days in the Jungle Survival School, probably 7 of which was out in the jungle. Some of it was classroom training. I mean, they're not going to send you over to unfriendly skies of Vietnam and not know what to do if you, as a flyboy, wind up in the jungle at night. So we learned a lot about escape and evasion, how to find water, those big mounds of fire ants, walk around them, not towards them. Things like, oh, see that snake? That could make great breakfast. You know, slice it and fry it, you got bacon. See that snake? It's thinking the same thing about you. It wants to have you for breakfast. So you learn some important stuff before you go over there. So what's over there? Okay, Southeast Asia, China up here, this huge country, real long skinny country called Vietnam, cut in half after World War II to north and south. To the west, Laos, and south of Laos was Cambodia, and then a real friendly place called Thailand, which always was and is a beautiful location. There were Air Force bases all over here, Utapao, Ubon, Nong Kham Phanom, NKP, Udorn. We had F-4s, B-52s, everything fighting the war out of Thailand. And then we had all of our bases in South Vietnam. Phan Rang, Phu Cat, and Da Nang are 3 of them. One's pretty far south, and the other one's very far north. And I have experience with all of those. Oh, in Laos, there's a couple really cool places. There's a name of an area called Steel Tiger, not a friendly place to fly. And there's a really interesting place called the Bolivans Plateau, which is a whole mountainous ridge that overlooks an important road network called the Ho Chi Minh Trail, where all of the supplies from China and North Vietnam were coming down to Laos and Cambodia and coming back into the country to support the war. Okay, so this was an important road network that we were constantly trying to cut and interdict. That was the word, interdiction. So this was July of 1970. Home away from home. Okay, a typical Air Force base in South Vietnam. This one, an arid, dry location, hot and dry, or maybe hot and wet. That was our two seasons, hot and dry, hot and wet. These barracks, that was home away from home, right there. But if you take a look, you know, if you step back and look at this, first of all, telephone poles, power. How about a fire hydrant that looks exactly like the one in Newark, New Jersey, where I grew up? Okay, I'm going, we had a fresh water plant, hot and cold running water, stable power, plug your stereo in, listen to Jimi Hendrix, do all that stuff. I mean, it was like, I'm not kidding, it was a piece of the United States planted in South Vietnam. You know, other than getting rocket attacks and mortars, other than that, it was a pretty cool place. So our barracks, if you look at the barracks, it was plywood and had these concrete walls all the way around it. Metal door. It's a pretty secure area. Air crew barracks were air conditioned. So I spent the year in Vietnam sleeping during the day, hot, sticky days in an air conditioned barracks. Outside it was blindingly bright, noisy as hell with F-4s and F-100s flying around. But it was pretty easy living in the barracks. Our shadow mission crew, okay, there were 8 of us on the airplane, 4 enlisted and 4 officers. So as a crew, we got along pretty well. We had a pilot, co-pilot, a table navigator that got us to where we had to go and back home safely. The night observation scope operator, that was a major, usually, who was a navigator that worked the scope, looking around at heat signatures and target areas. And I don't know if you could see that, but there were 4 enlisted men, a flight engineer, 2 gunners, and the guy that would be a load master on a cargo airplane was trained to be a illuminator operator, an IO. And he's the guy that worked to set up the lamp in the back. So it took all eight of us to work together as a crew, else nothing would work. You just wouldn't get your bullets on target. I mean, air conditioned. We had a day room, ping pong tables. We had a bar, stools, refrigerator. Everybody had their own stash in the refrigerator, card table. It wasn't so bad. Only one guy I know came back with such bad PTSD, he took his own life. And I don't know how that happened, because our life over there as an airman flying wasn't so terrible. This was an interesting place. It was called the Happy Valley Drive-In. Well, it wasn't a drive-in, it was a walk-in, okay? Happy Valley was the nickname for Phan Rang. If you just look, everything at this time of the year is arid. So this is part of the hot and dry season. And we had, I think I've been there twice in the whole year. Think about it, I fly at night, and when do you go to a drive-in to look at a movie? At night. So didn't have much of an opportunity to go there. But the 1 or 2 times I did, the first time we had a Vietnamese gecko. He wasn't selling insurance. He'd run up the pole and look at you, and he had this big throat that bulged out, and he had a certain sound he would make. Okay, it was like this. So, you know what the nickname was, right? The gecko lizard was. Airman's Club. I mean, the base had a chapel, medical, dental facilities, had a hobby shop, had an officers club, an airman's club, a PX that you could buy anything from the Japanese, every camera, piece of stereo equipment you wanted to buy, you could get at the PX. So the airman's club was a fun place. If you had a night off not flying, it's called duty not involving flight. If you were DNIF, and they didn't have you doing something else, like driving the bread truck around, bringing crews back and forth, you could go up to the club. And usually you could identify which club you're at, what Air Force base, by the beer they're serving, you know. Down in Tanzania, the beer came from, it was San Miguel, came from the Philippines. This has to be Phuket, since it's Schlitz, okay? Phan Rang, we had Budweiser. So I don't know how that happened. I mean, it's just too long ago to worry about that. But what's George Renfro on the left and Bill Zito, two of my buddy gunners, what are they looking at? They're looking at a Thai band, a band from Thailand that barely spoke English, okay? Usually 5 or 6 musicians, all youngsters, beautiful young ladies that I learned later were French and Thai. I'll let you do the connection to when French was occupying Southeast Asia. They're looking at the band, and the band, they didn't speak English, but if you closed your eyes and went like this, it sounded like the Beach Boys playing, and that was Brian Wilson singing. Unbelievable. This is our business card. You want to go to the club, you bring your business cards with you, you put it on the bar, and usually you don't have to buy a drink the whole night. Everybody else that wasn't in a flight suit were just pounding you down with drinks because they love you for what you did, because you know you were defending everybody else around. Who remembers the 1939 radio show? Some of you might, okay, called The Shadow. And The Shadows was who knows what evil lurks in the hearts of men. That's before my time. I had to do a little homework to find that out. But it's who knows what evil lurks below the jungle canopy. The Shadow knows. So that was the Spotlight, the Gunship 3, which between the Spooky and the 130, 17 special operations. That was taken at Phuket. I'll talk about that in a minute. So Phuket was an interesting air base. First of all, it's further north. So what we were doing up there in the whole month of December of 1970, we were doing missions in Laos over that place called the Bolivans Plateau, trying to defend the fire bases that were overlooking the Ho Chi Minh Trail, mostly Marine bases. The barracks were 2-story barracks, air-conditioned, no windows, all wood, no concrete protection, but it was also a comfortable place to live. Some of the guys, had super cool Churchill from Philadelphia. We had Flying Hawaiian from Maui. Jim Gregg was a pig farmer. I think he still is in Missouri. Rodney Freese got a job at Lockheed Marietta in Georgia, and that's where he still lives. These are all my flying buds. So, Phuket, okay? Green grass. I mean, I haven't seen green grass in 6 months. It's like, wow, take your shoes off and wiggle it. And you could wiggle your toes in it. And it was good. Think about the training we went through, right? I was in Clark Air Force Base, up in Spokane Survival School, went to gunship school in Ohio. So you meet people all along the road. You know how many of them went to Phan Rang? So when I got to Phuket, Dan Thompson from Chinook, Kansas, Dan was there. I went to Phan Rang, he went to Phuket. I trained with him in Lockbourne. So it was like, hey, you guys are here for a month. Wow, cool. Let's have a big party. And I mean, you could see the barbecue chicken on the grill. Again, other than rockets and mortars periodically, this was not a bad gig. So you go after 1971 comes, Happy New Year. 2 years, a year and a half into my service time, we get orders to go to Da Nang. Here's another operation. This one you could look up on Google. This one, Lam Son 719. Everything written about it has something about the AC-119s and how important our role was in this operation. That was February of 71. Da Nang. How about the Coca-Cola sign that says Coca-Cola and something else on top that probably says Coca-Cola? but in Vietnamese. Anybody know Vietnamese? No? Okay, I don't. Da Nang was an old base. I don't know when it was built, but if you look at the building, this old rusty building here, here we go again, right there. It was a deteriorating base, but it was heavily used by the Air Force. Something happened to us guys. After months of flying at night, we tended to lose the pigment in our skin. We very seldom saw daylight. We were always getting whiter and whiter, ghostly looking people. And if you were getting close to your DEROS, the day that you expected to return from overseas, DEROS, you had to get rid of that ghostly white and put on a DEROS tan. So they figured out how to climb up on the roof of the barracks at Da Nang, and we'd spend some time in the morning or late afternoon laying up there in nothing but our skivvies, hoping to get some sun and turn into something that's not so ghostly looking. This was a typical guard tower. There were these special police, our air police, that were around the perimeter of the base. Some clever engineer put this guard tower near the end of the runway. And the guards, I met a guard up at the club. He said, yeah, we knew you 119s. We knew the reputation you have for not flying very well. And what they would do, they would come out of the tower and run away until our 119 took off and passed the tower. Then they'd run back up and say, okay, we're ready. They made it. Away we went. Okay, let's go on a mission. So you get out to the airplane. Okay, typical, power's on. You can see the light, the belly beacon rotating. There's our bread truck, which brings the crews around. Sometimes on your day off, you'd be not flying, but working. You'd be driving the bread truck. Typical dress for the night, okay? 38 revolver here, your Rambo knife over here, extra ammo for the 38, 2 radios, signal flares, a mirror compass. Behind the radio was a note in Vietnamese that says, if you find me and turn me in to friendly forces, we'll give you a reward, okay? At least that's what they told me it said. And you had your parachute harness, which clipped on securely around all of this. We didn't wear our parachutes, and I'll show you about that. And our flight helmet with a power cord for your headset that you plug into the airplane. And there were 8 of us that would pre-flight the airplane, make sure the guns were safe, the ammo load was correct. You had everything you needed, because once you left the ground and you said, oh, damn, where's that screwdriver I'm supposed to have? That just doesn't work. There's no going back. So we pre-flight the airplane from top to bottom, make sure everybody knows it's working, and then we would go. If you get aboard, you'd have our seats where we'd our web seats where we'd strap in for takeoff and landing, our parachutes lined up. These were flight curtains, heavy curtains that would prevent shrapnel from flying around when a gun exploded. Do guns explode? Yes. On occasion. We had armor plating. This is where the gunners and the IO, when we were picking up rounds from the ground, we'd all accumulate here until we found out that the armor plating was so heavy that they took it all out, and there was just plywood there. So, you know, what are you doing? You're standing on a piece of plywood. The illuminator out the back, the flare launcher is out of sight on the left. Now, the business end of the thing, my responsibility. We had 4 of these, 308 caliber, that's 7.62, 6-barrel electrically driven Gatling guns. Okay, this drum would feed the bullets into the gun, the ammo into the gun. It could shoot either 6,000 rounds a minute, it's 100 bullets a second, or 3,000. So 2,000, I'm going to give you a math problem. Okay? This is 2,000 rounds and you're shooting 6,000 rounds a minute. How long does it take to empty a gun?
20 seconds.
Who said 20 seconds? You got it. I mean, there's 2 gunners and 4 guns, right? The pilot, if he's got a heavy thumb, there you go. Your gun's empty. So you flip on gun 3. So we used to shoot guns 1, 3, 2, 4. 1, 3, 2, 4. So as soon as gun 1 went empty, put on gun 3, I start reloading gun 1. The ammo came linked together, and Peggy's got a nice display in that case over there of linked together 7.62. Since this is a linkless feed system, you would feed the ammo into the gun by stripping off the links and feeding it into this linkless feed system. The faster you spun this system, the faster it went around, the faster it would shoot. I mean, it was unbelievable. From the side, the motion of take a 50 caliber or even an M16 or an M14, right? The bolt's going back and forth. Forward, bang. Come back, eject the cartridge. Forward, bang, bang. And you can't go 100 times a second doing that. So each barrel had a bolt, and each bolt went around an elliptical cam path. So if you look at the motion of the bolt, it's this, what you would expect. But in actual reality, it went back and forth in an elliptical cam path. Clever design, General Electric. This is the wrong end to be looking at the guns. They shot, again, we could shoot them at 6,000 rounds a minute. This was a typical flash depressor. You gotta see the flame at 100 bullets a second. You know what a high-powered rifle does? Imagine 100 bullets a second coming out of that thing. It's just a roar of red flame. So we had the flash suppressors. That helped a lot to keep us invisible in the sky. Here's a little side story. Calvin Super Churchill. That is an M16. We had 4 crew-served M16s on the airplane. They never told us who's got, out of the 8 of us, who's got the 4, who's going to get them. They never taught us how to parachute out with the gun. But there they were. I didn't touch one in a whole year I was there. They were on the airplane, and that's where they stayed, clipped up to the front somewhere. A lot of guys talked about this. This was one of those unwritten things. What do you do if your airplane's in such trouble that it's not going to fly anymore? Either mechanical or battle damage, right? Half the guys said they are not going to parachute in the middle of the night into the freaking jungle and hope to survive that and not get captured or killed. The other part of the crew said, no, I'm going to fly the airplane to the ground and buy it all quickly. I never made quite the decision on that, but we did talk about it a little bit. Here's the lamp sticking out the back door. So picture every door in the airplane is open. There's no, you're flying up there with 2 3,500 horsepower engines, making all this noise. You got this jet engine making power for the lamp, and you got a flare launcher on one side, this illuminator on the other side. It was a noisy environment. And but that lamp lit up the night, even though nobody could see it. It was like green daylight in the scope. This is the way you usually see it, okay? Phan Rang, in the first picture, there were no street lights. There's no street lights lining up this thing like most American city would have. So the air base was dark, and if you wanted to work on an airplane, you better have brought some lights with you. And this is typical on the Phan Rang flight line. Okay, go to the VA and go ask for a blood test because you want to know if you've been exposed to Agent Orange. And they take like 9 tubes of blood, and then they're going to go, let's see what's in there. And the guy goes, oh my God, hydraulic fluid, gun smoke, high octane leaded fuel, He looks at me and goes, "You must have been a weapons mechanic." I said, "How'd you know?" It's your blood work, man. It's a three-sided steel revetment, which is supposed to protect the airplanes from on the ground attack. So when those engines started up, that revetment just filled with smoke. So we learned how to you rotate the engine 6 times, then you hit the go switch, and it starts up. As soon as you hear it start up, hold your breath, because that whole revetment, the inside of the airplane, was just filled with white smoke until it cleared a little bit. Then you could start breathing again. With a maximum takeoff weight of 64,000 pounds and typically 27,000 rounds of ammo on it for the night, it was fun to watch them try to take off, especially if it's a hot day with no headwind. I mean, these airplanes would, we'd look them disappear at the end of the runway, and they'd start to fly. And think, dang, don't lose an engine now, man. Don't lose an engine now. This was like, so I'm driving the bread truck on a day off. It's daytime. I wish I was sleeping, but I'm driving around the bread truck and taking crew. So I take a crew out to the airplane, wait for them to taxi out for takeoff, and then I got this picture. So there were places like downtown Da Nang and Saigon that actually were disgustingly bad smelling. Okay, it was just human population war. So on a nice night, to take off and climb like to 45 or 5,500 feet, and it's all of a sudden the temperature drops, the air is clear, maybe it's a beautiful sunset, and you're just enjoying some fresh air, not being down on the ground. The flare launcher, what's important? The flares were automatically launched. You push a button. There was nobody like the spooky gunship. Somebody had to kick the flare out the back door. Pull the lanyard, says, "Go very bright," and kick it out the back door. You hope you kicked it straight. We had this pneumatically powered flare launcher that would kick, we held 24 flares. They were like 2 million candle power. They were parachute flares. They would just drop on a parachute and just light up the ground. And we provided lots of lighting for people that like medical evacuation at night. There's nothing to shoot at, but we provided the light to get the helicopters in and out. What if a flare fails? So one night we're flying in a suspected enemy location. It's quiet. We're shooting at anything that we think is moving, and we drop a flare, and the parachute doesn't go off. The parachute doesn't deploy. So this burning flare hits the ground, and 30 seconds later, half the jungle explodes.
Yep.
I mean, the flare fell on an ammo cache, an enemy ammo cache. The whole thing blows up, and the illuminator operator gets credit for taking out an enemy ammo cache. Go figure. So this is a flash picture, okay? We're at night, pitch black airplane. Everybody's eyes are this big around because you're trying to see what you're doing in pitch black. We had little tiny flashlights that we would work on. And I had a flash with me on my Nikon. I asked the pilot, I said, "Pilot gun." He goes, "Go ahead, gunner." I says, "I brought my flash. Could I take a picture?" And he goes, "Yeah, go ahead." So as soon as we launched the flare, I've never seen a picture like this before. As soon as we launched that flare out the tube, it's out here gonna go away, and the other flares above it are falling down. So they're launching out the bottom, and the ones on the top go down. And boy, did I get screamed at by everybody else whose eyes were big like this. Now they're like this, and they can't see crap. So it took a while. It's the last time I used my flash. Here's another good one. This is, again, no pressure, suspected enemy location. This is sitting behind guns 2 and 3 when they're shooting. Okay, so the guns are pointing out the window. This is a stream of that fire, and every 5th round is a tracer. So this red line, this gun is joining it right here. And because you're at a 30-degree bank and you're flying in a pylon turn, the bullets seem to be curving away from you. It's quite an interesting. When you're on the ground, you don't want to be on the ground when this is happening. When you're on the ground looking out, that wall of red is just coming at you. But it was very interesting up in the air watching it go out. This is one of my pictures. I'm on the ground, DNIF, had a bad experience with a flight surgeon on an impacted wisdom tooth. 8 days bleeding, I wouldn't fly. So the weather is absolutely terrible. It's a lightning storm in the background. Shadow 6-1 launches, can't find target, comes back with fully fueled and loaded. Comes back to base right when the enemy, the Viet Cong, wanted to attack the base. Big mistake for them. They didn't know we were coming back. And we got the word that Shadow 6-1 is going to defend Phan Rang Air Base. So everybody else is running in a panic mode, find something cover. And I put more ectochrome in my Nikon, went outside, put my camera on top of a pickup truck, and held the shutter open for 2.5 minutes. And that is a picture, 2.5 minutes, airplane going around and shooting down at the ground, and you get this constant red. It's like a red tornado. They call it the firing circle. This thing's been published in Air Commando magazine. It's been published probably 6 or 8 times in the last 50 years. And who would have think? I never thought about, oh, what a famous picture, this is going to be. So I would be amiss if not talking about the other version of the AC-119. It's called a Stinger. You think we were big and heavy. Look at this thing. This is the same airplane with jet engines outside of it, 2 20-millimeter Vulcan cannons in addition to this, a forward-looking infrared. It took 3 gunners and an extra navigator, so a crew of 10. This thing could barely get off the ground. It wouldn't get off the ground if it didn't have the jet engines. But they flew missions in the Ho Chi Minh Trail. They flew missions hunting trucks, which I never had the opportunity to do, and I'm happy for that. They got really shot at, okay? Up at Da Nang, see this jet engine? See how everything seems to be blown out and peeled apart? This propeller is in what they call a feathered position. This guy barely made it back to base with 1 jet engine and one regular engine running. The co-pilot here didn't have a great day. He had to go immediately change his underwear. This thing blew the whole side of the airplane out, but they came back and landed safely, thank goodness. These guys weren't so lucky. The poor joke of the day was, what is black and green are full of crispy critters? Well, this guy got shot up so bad he lost all of his fuel, but they thought they could make it back to Da Nang, and they didn't. They landed in a shallow rice paddy with no fuel aboard. So other than breaking the airplane into a gazillion little pieces, there was no fire. Everybody walked away from this. We had a reputation of not crashing very well, and these guys walked away from it. If you go down to Eglin Air Force Base in the Panhandle between Pensacola and Panama City, there is Fort Walton Beach, and that's where the home of Special Operations is. And they have a big air park, which is now open to the public, and we have a couple of displays down there. The Air Force has granted us permission to put this dedication to the Shadow gunships here. There's also one to the Stingers. I have a bibliography, if you want to grab one. I have a whole list of references that you could go to. But we have a great gunship website. Everything you want to verify, whether I said or not, you could go to our website, and it's full of bios and pictures and stories and our past reunions or future reunions. I'm going down to Eglin in November for our 25th reunion. Okay. So we did lose about 18 over there. We had two shadows, crashed on takeoff. out of Tonsanute, Shadow 7-6. Three guys survived this, two survived this. We had a thing called Lemon 10. I mean, the gunners, the North Vietnamese AAA gunners, they got to know our call sign. So what do? You fly with a call sign. It's not Stinger. They call themselves Lemon 10. Oh, these guys, what's a Lemon 10? We'll show you. Lemon 10 had a lost runaway prop. The airplane was so uncontrollable, the pilot made everybody bail out, including himself. The airplane headed out over the South China Sea and was eventually shot down by an F-4 Phantom. So we lost one to friendly fire, kind of safe. And the one guy, I think it was the IO, who landed in a rice paddy, and the rescue boat got tangled up in his parachute risers, and he wound up drowning. So we lost one to drowning after bailing out, one of these things. And then the most famous one, this is Stinger 4-1, May 2nd, 72. These guys kept getting fragged earlier and earlier in the daytime over a place called An Loc. And they got hammered so bad. Intelligence didn't know that they had radar-guided anti-aircraft guns. These guys are flying in the daylight, black airplane, radar-guided guns. They didn't have a prayer, but they knew how important it was to save that provincial capital west of Saigon called An Loc. So they went up, and the airplane got shot up so bad. 3 of the crew members did not survive. They were actually executed on the ground in a pretty bad way. And the others got picked up. I'm pleased to be personal friends with 3 of them. Okay, a little humor. This didn't last too long, but we had nose art. We were allowed to paint some stuff on the nose art. We had a crew that was like a crew of 10. That was, 5 of them were Polish. It was the Polish crew. So somebody came up with this, the Polish cannon. Okay. And real briefly, this is what succeeded us. This was the Spectre gunship. It's an AC-130 built by Lockheed. In various iterations, it had 20 millimeter cannons, a 40 millimeter cannon, a 105 millimeter howitzer cannon mounted in the back. So I had the pleasure of flying on one of these right before I got out. I was down at Eglin. I talked my way onto a training mission. And you actually feel the airplane boom in the back. When they fired the gun, the airplane would actually kick out on a circle. It was, but deadly. I mean, get a 105 coming down from you from about 55 or 6,500 feet. Not like this, but down at you. Okay, skip way ahead to 2 years ago. This is an AC-130J Ghost Rider, it's called. You could search this one too. This was taken at Dulles Airport in Washington, D.C. at our 23rd reunion. My association is so tight with current special operations. We will tell them where we're going, and if they can, they'll fly an airplane into us. So these guys came from Cannon Air Force Base in New Mexico. A whole crew, everybody, they had extra people aboard. We loved talking to them. We learned about the airplane and what they face. They were amazed at what we did at 25 or 3,500 feet with all the doors open and people shooting small arms at us. They were like, what? Are you kidding me? 13,000 feet, okay? I mean, these guys have to wear oxygen. The whole airplane is just sealed up. And their guns are so accurate that they could drive it around right in the same spot every time. And if you have air superiority, it works. Think about where we're going if we have an armed conflict nowadays. We're not going to have air superiority. These guys are thinking they're going to become obsolete one day. Anyway, Uh, Thank you, Peggy. That's my presentation. A little bit about who I am, what we did, how we did it. If you have any questions, you could ask me now for everybody's benefit, or ask me later. I'm not going anywhere for a while. Yes, sir.
You said the light is in the tail of the plane. Why are you illuminating from the tail as you're flying forward?
Oh, the light is pointing out the left side, like the guns are, and the scope is. But that was that we had an open door back there to mount the lamp. What was very interesting is that the NAS operator, he's got his night observation scope, and he's looking around for heat signatures, things moving in the jungle. He actually had a button, like a rotary button on his scope, and he could articulate the lamp. So he could actually move the lamp from where he is on his NAS position. It was, I mean, this is 1967, this thing was developed. I was like, I got aboard this thing going like, God, you got to see what they do now. And my wife, Andrea, will tell you, she was aboard the AC-130J. She talked to her crew members. She saw this.
Where's the holes in the side?
Yeah, she asked the guy, well, where are the holes in the side of the airplane? And everything sticks out of it. They looked at her like, what holes? Good question, thank you. Peggy, thank you for the opportunity. Yes, sir.
Just a comment. I have a friend that, my understanding, was a dog handler that went around the Air Force Base for security. And unfortunately, he passed away not that long ago, maybe 5 years ago now, because of Agent Orange. So, but I just want to ask, is that something that was common, to have a dog handler walk around the Air Force Base?
Absolutely. I mean, Phan Rang was a complicated base. We flew 4 flags. The Australians were flying what we call B-57 bombers. They call them Canberras. We had South Korean artillery around the outside of the base, of course the U.S. flag and the Republic of South Vietnam. But the base was defended by special police. We had canine units with dogs, and Phan Rang has a Facebook page, the Happy Valley Phan Rang Facebook page. And the dog handlers will often post information and stories and things like that. So maybe not very well-known story, but definitely true. The dogs were there. We had a mascot at Phan Rang. Who would guess the name of the mascot? Shadow. Oh, you knew. When we gave the airplanes to the South Vietnamese 2 months after I left Vietnam, that was July of '72, and it took months to get these airplanes. After being converted to gunship, it took months to fly them across the Pacific. They were breaking down in Midway, Guam, failed engines, hydraulic problems. Not one of them came back. We don't have one real example of a 119 gunship. There's a make-believe one. This was a DEA confiscated from the drug lords down in South America. They confiscated the 119. The Air Force Special Operations bought it, painted it up to look like a Shadow, and has it on display down at Holbert. If you get to the Panhandle of Florida, and it's a museum that's open to the public. Recently, they moved the fence, so now you could go on the museum without having to go on the base, which is impossible these days. I would recommend that. Quick, take this before I keep talking.